Why are children fertile? Nature doesn't have any idea of ethics or morals. Survival of the fittest means survival of the species, not the individual. We have these morals and cultural norms because we recognize that emotional maturity takes longer than sexual maturity. Nature doesn't care about that. Our reproductive age is a result of evolution. One can make a point about how a child is more likely to succeed in life if they have at least one emotionally mature parent in their lives. But that doesn't really matter. Evolution is a numbers game. There was a time, and it really wasn't that long ago, that a staggering number of children died, though accidents or infections or disease. As a modern first-world middle-class parent, it is difficult for me to emotionally wrap around the idea that once parents knew that they'd have to bury some of their children. And if you have an environment where a large number of your offspring won't survive long enough to have offspring of their own, you respond by producing more offspring. So, there would be an evolutionary disadvantage to having humans that reached sexual maturity later. Put another way, even if in the past there had been mutations that caused humans to reach sexual maturity in the late teens, that genetic mutation wasn't one that stuck with us because the people who had it were much less likely to have children who could pass that gene on. Girls actually used to get their periods somewhat later in the past, probably mostly due to poor nutrition. Why would nature care about what we as humans came to accept as mature enough to start a family? Why does nature start puberty so early? Your premise is wrong. Nature first start puberty so early. Today it is fairly commonplace for 10-13-year-old girls to be able to physically have children. But that's because of excellent nutrition. That wasn't the case for our ancestors, who had an unsteady food supply, and ancient skeletons all show signs of periodic starvation or poor nutrition. It would have been uncommon for girls to be able to have children. Igor 15/16. Our brain isn't fully mature until we are around 25 years old. Not sure what the relevance of this is. We don't need to have a brain in the absolute peak activity to successful and ethically have kids. Sorry for the lazy answer. But just read this article. Your question will start to be answered there. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/neoteny in humans. I could never do justice with my own answer. I really like how virtually everyone, except one, missed the point of the question and just repeated the same thing about morality being an artificial construct. Guys, the poster is asking why nature allows a 12-year-old girl to get pregnant if the act of giving birth at that age is lethal. Nature started puberty later than we hit it in the modern world. In the 1800s, the average age at first period for girls was in the mid-teens, and now it's in the preteens. Basically, once we started having more food than we needed, puberty started earlier. It's very physically dangerous for a child, especially one under about 14 years old, to be pregnant and give birth, but it becomes much less physically dangerous in the 16-22 range. So this would have been more aligned in the past. Of course, in the modern world, it's also generally a bad idea to have a baby when you are in that 16-25 age range. But if you think about the lives of humans as hunter-gatherers, where we did everything collectively, and older people who couldn't do as much hunting and gathering were probably the primary childcare in the group, it probably didn't matter much if you had your first baby when you were 18 or when you were 27 the way it does today. And then last evolution, nature doesn't care that we are living in the best possible way. It just cares that we survive. The systems are getting ready, triggered by hormones. It takes a while to complete the process, and they are not all developing at the same speed. There is also considerable variance between individuals. So some systems are just ready a bit too early, which is why parts of the body and mind, but those are separate topics, aren't ready yet, while others are. The good news is that humans have developed ways to deal with that. Most people don't find kids attractive. Sadly, not everyone. And parents have the urge to protect them, which helps. Puberty is starting sooner than it did before. When food wasn't as abundant and conditions were more natural to our species, puberty often started a bit later on. Also, nature doesn't really care about age appropriate. Not every girl would survive giving birth young, but some did, and had more children and so on. Nature created wasps that implant their eggs into still living paralyzed bugs to be eaten alive. Nature doesn't care what's ethical, only what's most efficient. Maybe because puberty is a process. The human body needs to go through stages to develop. It's not a fast thing or a switch. So starting puberty at 12-13 kinda makes sense. Having children before the brain being fully developed is also not that devastating to human survival. So it also makes sense. Remember that when it comes down to it, we're animals. We don't get special treatment from evolution. Evolution doesn't go, well. Humans have created a society where having a baby at 15 detrimental for the parents. Evolution also doesn't go, wow. These humans are dumping so many weird substances all over the place which are causing physical changes. I'd better adapt them to that real quick so they can't start having babies at 10. Some children suffer from a condition called precocious puberty, which is an earlier than normal pubescence. It can be prevented with medication. I think. I may get the numbers, finer details slightly incorrect here because I read about this over a year ago. Children are now also, in general, commencing puberty an average of 2 years earlier than children from just 2 generations ago. I don't think it is known exactly why. It is almost certainly environmental, and it is not at all good for their health. Girls are getting their periods younger and younger as time goes on. And we can't exactly pinpoint why. There could be a lot of reasons, like hormones in food or extra stress in life. What we do know, however, is that when you have sexual experiences or inappropriate contact with an adult, it causes a myriad of social, emotional, and even physical issues later in life. We evolved to survive and reproduce in the dangerous, insecure world of hunter-gatherer tribes. Life was short and uncertain. People had to assume adult responsibilities very early in life, or they simply didn't get the opportunity to pass on their genes. We did not evolve to the environment that we currently live in. This is just one of countless evolutionary mismatches that humans have to deal with today. As a species, we evolved in and for one environment, but we now live in a very, very different environment. Nature never intended for girls to get periods at 10 or 11. They should be getting them at 15. At least our current food and living conditions have caused this. Puberty didn't used to start so young. Puberty in both males and females is triggered by hormones which are delayed by inadequate diets. Historically, food has almost always been restricted. So people didn't go through puberty until 15, 17 or so. It's only with our modern life of indulgence that female puberty tends to start around 10, 12, and often younger in obese girls. Every single animal is sexually mature enough to bear offspring before they are fully physically mature. It's just how evolution happened. Almost all animals can go into heat at an age that can reduce their lifespan if they have offspring consistently from that age. That's in part why pet dogs and cats live longer than stray ones. Nature ultimately doesn't care, it just throws a bunch of stuff at it and sees what takes. If enough survive enough to reproduce, that's nature's job done.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.